is the first thing that normally people do is they add colors to everything. They add the same color. So what I did is I added the different hues of blue I told you about with the dots. And what I did is I added three or four separate hues of blue in dot form in all the background trees, which I'm now repeating to the foreground trees. Now technically someone would say, well, isn't that just going to blend in too much with the background trees? Well, of course it will. So how do you think we can make that a little bit different? If you sit at home and try to figure that out, it might be kind of different for you because you're probably still learning and that's why you're watching my video. But how we're going to do that in this particular painting, this particular case, is we used blue as a hue to add to white. And what that did is it gave us this cooler looking snow, which is what you want because it gives a really cool effect. But what we're going to do is now, for the foreground trees that are bringing out this deer to life and brightening up the picture, we're actually going to do 3 more levels of hue with white and gray. So we're actually going to add a light gray hue in dot form times 3 on each of these main foreground trees to give them a bit of a pop. And the reason why it will pop is because to the naked eye you will see a discrepancy of color change between the foreground trees and the background trees. In order to do that, though, you have to have that color change. Without that color change, your eye would see it as the same, which is not a bad thing, but to give something a little more interesting, to give your painting a little bit more, or to give my painting a little bit more of a difference, I chose to add those other hues to make these trees a little bit more special in the sense that how the viewer and how the iris sees color. This is a pretty cool little process. This is one of my favorite pieces, and I know it's going to be one of my faves once it's all done. I do sell my prints. You are welcome to buy a print of this. I may even be keeping this as an original to sell as well. So now what I'm doing is I'm just adding these little colors. I'm just adding these little dots. Now I'm going to show you again from a distance what this looks like, because up front I've only really showed you what it looks like up front. And some people think, well, look at all these dots, it looks kind of weird, it's just all dotty and stuff, doesn't really look like anything. You know, it looks kind of crappy, whatever, you know. People have this weird perception as to what art should look like and how perfect something should be. Well, last time I checked, art is not perfection. The people that can draw perfect images and make them still like, I have great respect for. I think it's an awesome skill that they have. I don't know if one day I'll master that skill or not. I'm not quite sure if I even want to, just because of the fact that I like what I do. But I do have great respect for people that can do realistic paintings. I think it's one of the most amazing gifts that you can have. Mine was called primitive art. That's how I was described to me as, or commercial art. Basically, my kind of art would be perfect for illustrations for children's books, good for cartoon work, even for still imagery work for television shows, like kids' television shows where they have a narrator in the background and they just show a still image. That's what this type of art would be good and useful for sure. So I'm almost done here doing these little dots, and then I'm going to show you what I mean. Now, I'm going to do a few more over here that I just noticed. Another thing too is on this tree particularly, it has these lines, what I call runs. Now what I try to do is I try to imitate the fact that it would be packing along sides of, say, bark or cuts in the tree, or, you know, stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually accentuate that with more dots, but we're going to use white this time. The idea is, like I said, we're not trying to go for perfection, at least I'm not, because I'm not perfect. And what I'm actually trying to go for here is to brighten this up, to give it a feeling of compact snow on top of snow on top of snow. The nice thing about the dot program and doing it that way is that by the time you finish packing all this on, and because you're using the different levels of hue and saturation, as you'll be able to see if I go a little close up here. Now, if you can see that, you can see the different color saturation. So you can tell that there is dark blues, there's light blues. There's actually 3 levels of blue if you really look hard enough. But you can see the 2 for sure, like that one. See if I can't get a better close-up. It's trying to get a good area for you to see it. There we go, that's better. Yeah, so like stuff like that, you can really notice it there. Dark blues and the light blues. And those are like light blues with whites. So those literally are light blue, even though